We're coming into a world where we can automate everything. If you're in the top 10% of talent, let's say, the world's your oyster. Is that going to be that you're driving an Uber? It produces that big wealth gap while you're having more productivity. Those who benefit from it are those who are the capitalists with the ideas that replace the workers. It becomes more of a pain in the neck to have a college graduate. When you have the downturn, then you have people at each other's throats. That's one of those things that can cause the bubble to burst.
Every list of jobs AI will take is missing the point. Ray Dalio runs the largest hedge fund in the world. Asked what AI means for the average person's job, he didn't name an industry. He named a line and told you which side you're on.
It means that you will either be cutting edge and capable and among that top fraction of a percent down to 10% of the population who is cutting edge and using it and accelerating, or you will, if you're in a thinking job, be at risk of being replaced. How do you sell yourself at getting a better income? Or how are you getting money from the government? Mm-hmm. You selling yourself is the main thing. This is one of the big problems now with artificial intelligence and other machines replacing people and different types of jobs. It becomes more difficult. It produces that big wealth gap while you're having more productivity. There is this giant polarity. If you're in the top 10% of talent, let's say, the world's your oyster. But nowadays, in order to be there, okay, that's difficult. Find something that gives you the ability to sell your time for good money. Is that going to be that you're driving an Uber? Is that going to be that you have the talent and you're going to be able to understand AI and contribute that understanding to a company that values that? Or what is your skill?
This already happened. Not a forecast, a pattern. Machines have been climbing the same ladder for 200 years.
The evolution of man was, we had the agricultural era, and there was no real inventiveness. And then man invented the machine. And what the machine did is it replaced man's physical necessity. So men used to be like oxen in the agricultural field and so on, and they were replaced by tractors. And then we entered the industrial age. First, you had the printing press that allowed people to learn. And then you had these inventions, the Industrial Revolution, the first Industrial Revolution. And what you had is the replacing the physical that man would do in factories then and so on. And so the way I look at it is I look at the human body and I see like it's replacing the body and so on. And it's coming up higher and higher, and then it replaces some aspects of the mind that you can computerize. And it's coming up and up, and it's replacing higher and higher levels of thinking and reason.
That's the claim. Workers share down, owners share up. It isn't a metaphor. The Bureau of Labor Statistics publishes that number every quarter. In the second quarter of 2026, it hit 52.9%, the lowest since the series began in 1947.
So then you start to say, what do I have to offer? And so in answer to who benefits from it, those who benefit from it are those who are the capitalists with the ideas that replace the workers. And so if you look at, there's revenue for businesses. When you buy something in a store, there's revenue, okay? And if you look at the share that is going to workers, you see that share going down. And if you look at the share that's going to those who own that business, that share is going up. And so this is an evolutionary process. And it's true that what happens is you get more free time. Okay, so now the society has to think, how do I deal with this? So, for example, the work week, which used to be, a 60 or 70-hour work week, goes down to less than a 40-hour work week, and there's more time. But there needs to be, how do you create a bottom? And so we're going through this phase in which there is this upper end that is making incredible amounts of wealth, as we described, and then this lower end that is then having these challenges.
He's describing graduates as a cost. The New York Fed measures the result: 5.6% unemployed, 42% in jobs that never required the degree.
We have a relatively good economy, and the difficulty of college graduates to get employment has increased significantly. And I can tell you that in many businesses, it becomes more of a pain in the neck to have a college graduate, let's say, do it. You have to train them, and many of those tasks, many of that thing can be done very quickly with the AI and with computerization. And as
not the 1920s, the 1870s. The last time this much wealth landed in this few hands.
So, like the Industrial Revolution leads into the Gilded Age. Okay, the Gilded Age looks a lot like now, people buying expensive things and looking very gilded. And then it leads to the robber barons. And the robber barons are people who are considered, that they're taking advantage, the billionaire class, and it becomes that cycle. But we also have some other things that are going on that happen around the same time. A big gap between the rich and the poor, and which also means the left and the right, the politics of it, right? Just as we have now. When you have the downturn, then you have people at each other's throats. So if we take politics, what you see is this, that they don't have enough money. The governments don't have enough money. We have big budget deficits, okay? Where do you get the money from in order to pay those bills? The UK has had, I think, 6 out of the last 7 years, there's been a new prime minister. And because there's not enough money for the government, and so what you start to see is people come in with their claims, but there's this, how do we get the money? And then people run who have money. They say, I don't want to be in this tax zone. That's going to be, and then they leave. And so there's a domestic political problem that is not people compromising the same way they used to compromise, right? So now you have the politics which compounds this.
He knows this one personally. His own foundation studied his own state and found 119,000 young people aged 14 to 26 disconnected from school and work, or heading there.
The system has to work for most of the people, but it all comes down to productivity. And so the way I look at it is the government run by almost anybody can't make these things run well. I mean, governments do not make things run well. So what is it like to give them the money and expect that they're going to make things work well? And so you look at this set of circumstances and you say, who is going to make it work well? And I don't know the answer. And these are budget considerations and so on. You have to prioritize the things that make it work well. And you know what that is? That is educating people to be productive and civil.
So, tax the rich. Dalio's objection isn't moral, it's mechanical. And it starts with what the wealthy would have to do to pay it.
They have to sell the wealth, and that contributes to get the money to pay the taxes. That's one of those things that can cause the bubble to burst, as we're talking. But we do have to realize that it will lessen investment, because what wealth is mostly used for is to put it into investment. So you have to do this with at the same time, the improvements in those that are going to improve productivity, like education and so on. If you're just making transfer payments, wealth payments, and you undermine the productivity of the society by doing that. In other words, you're just giving it for consumption and so on, and the money's going from what was capital expenditures and those kinds of investments that make a better, more productive society to go to, in a sense, consumption and so on that doesn't produce that productivity. That's going to be a problem. So you have to think, how do you make people productive, and how do you make your society productive for most people?
He doesn't offer a fix. He offers a number that already moved, a class that already captured it, and a remedy that would puncture the thing holding it up. The jobs were never the point. The line was drawn long before anyone asked which side you're on.